Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus departed to the mountain to pray, and he spent the night in prayer to God. When day came, he called his disciples to himself, and from them he chose 12, whom he also named apostles: Simon, whom he named Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, Simon who was called a Zealot, and Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. And he came down to them and stood on a stretch of level ground. A great crowd of his disciples and a large number of the people from all Judea and Jerusalem, and the coastal region of Tyre and Sidon, came to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And even those who were tormented by unclean spirits were cured. Everyone in the crowd saw him, because power came forth from him and healed them all. Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Today we hear Luke's version of the call of the apostles, which we heard from Matthew about 4 or 6 weeks ago. And there are various things that are similar. The names, all the names of the 12 apostles are the same, although the order is different. We'll talk about that in a second. But more importantly, for our purposes today, we begin the passage by hearing that Jesus went up on a mountain. Once again, that place of encounter with God in the scriptures and in other religions as well. And he went there to pray because he was had a big decision to make. He had to choose the 12 men that were going to be the continuers, if you will, of his work in the world after the crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension. So, again, we see those different terms we talked about the last time we saw this passage in Matthew. The term disciple, which means one who is coming to know the Lord in this case. The term apostle, which is the Greek version of the word that means one having been sent out. And finally, the term the 12, which both Matthew and Luke use to refer to the 12 apostles. Sometimes they're called disciples, sometimes they're called apostles, sometimes they're called the 12. So remember, the way to keep in mind that the difference between them is that all disciples, all who are coming to know the Lord, are not also apostles. But all apostles, all who have been sent out, are also those coming to know the Lord. The 12, of course, is a clear term referring to the 12. So now to the names. The order of the names is different in Matthew and in Luke. And also in the very ancient First Eucharistic prayer, the Roman canon, the names are listed in a different order there as well. But there is one thing that's always the same between all those three, or among all those three. And that is the fact that Peter is always listed first. So it suggests that very early on in the church, the apostles themselves knew that Peter was the head, and as time went along, the successors of Peter became known as the popes, and the successors of the apostles became known as the bishops. So still today, as we know very clearly, the pope is an apostle himself, but he's the first among equals. That's the term that's usually used theologically to explain his relationship to the others. The first among equals. So what happens next is he brings them all back down the mountain. They have encountered him, God, in the person of Jesus Christ, on the mountain. But of course we know we can't stay there. We have to go back to work. So he brings them back down and begins the job of preaching and teaching so that they can learn from his example. They are watching and listening to him preach and teach, and this is how he instructs them, by example. And so the same thing can be said of us in our own situations, to the extent to which we are all disciples. We're all trying to come to know the Lord, and to a certain extent, each of us has been sent out in our own workplace, our own family, our own parish, whatever it happens to be one who, having absorbed the preaching and teaching of the Lord, tries to pass it on to others. We all have that vocation to some extent. In any case, the more important thing, and the point that we'll take away today, is that whenever we have to make a decision that's important or even not so important, we ought to follow the example of the Lord, who always went to the place of encounter with God and to pray.